Hello world, this is Stefan of Lendergan Games. As you can see, I've expanded the animation a bit, and while working on this, I've managed to work on a roadmap of what's all going to be happening next. Mainly, my next step after this will be working on some transitional animations, such as when he's pointing right but moving to the left, adding an animation transition to that. It's like I've said earlier, this all stems from just a personal bugbear of mine of, say, a guy with a sword and a shield. He moves one way and they're in one and they're in the right and left hand, but he moves the other, the shield is now in the right hand. And yeah, they do it for game space and they do it for simplicity. It's less work they have to do, so they won't work on the gameplay. It's just with me. And so you're seeing the fruits of my personal decisions on this. Yeah, for the roadmap, I'll be working on transitional animations. Sure, it's not going to be not going to look anything major, but it will add weight to the character. And for what I'm doing, that is important because if it ain't heavy metal. Of course, after I finish up all of his walking animations, then I'm gonna start working on basic combat animations. And after I get all of that done, I'm gonna open what I've got up to Creative Commons. Just, hey, here's all the sprites, here's all the frames of animation for this, as long as you're making money. As long as you're not making money off of it, go nuts. Hopefully that'll help others out as they try and figure out animations. And after I finish all that up for this Minotaur, I'm going to work on the little knight that could. Just the same process all over again, working on him. And hopefully by the time I get to that point, I'll have I'll have figured out what to do next. Probably some graphical user interface, like look, some health bars and stamina bars, or whatever, maybe. Don't know yet. So that's where I am and that's where I'm going. And so far there's nothing too majorly obstructing right now. I am happy to report that between my last update and now, I have worked on this at least a little bit every day. Basically, if you're not progressing, you're regressing. So at least I've managed to not regress. Keep that consistent. So that feels great. All right, now as I mentioned last time, I wanted to talk about anthropocentrism in fantasy, and let's kick this off. Elves, orcs, and dwarves are pointy-eared humans, green humans, and short humans. Of course, in and of itself, there's nothing wrong with that. However, what gets to me is the notion that they're supposed to be different from each other, despite the practical fact that they all eat, sleep, breathe, and bleed like humans do, varying at most only in degrees. As well, I find that I disdain for different reasons the most common way of interjecting differences, that being cultural differences. Well, let's focus first on the problem of anthropocentrism in most fantasy settings that contain multiple species of sentient beings. As far as storytelling goes, I am giving stories a pass on this, partly because the nature of mass marketing is easy digestibility, thus requiring anything popular to make everything that can talk to be like a human, and partly because popular schlock is more or less my entire experience with fantasy storytelling. At games, however, I freely point the finger and declare laziness. Taking Dungeons and Dragons as an example, at level 1, An elf paladin, orc paladin, and dwarf paladin have noticeable differences between them, but by level 10, the racial qualities disappear under the ever-increasing qualities of being a fighter. At that point, they're just a paladin with pointy ears, a green paladin, and a short paladin, all 96% the same as a strictly human paladin. The Elder Scrolls also fits neatly into this. The differences between humans, scaly humans, and cat girls is by and large just cosmetic. Sure, in Skyrim, lizards can breathe underwater and cat girls have claws, but gill sprouting necklaces are light enough to keep on hand, and in order for claws to replace battle axes, Skyrim needed to have kept karate as a skill. Of course, I freely admit that the solution isn't simple. The only game that comes to mind where a player character feels truly non-human is Okami. In that game, the controls are designed for controlling a wolf, making replacing him with a human require massive mechanical overhauls. Instead, the common solution is its own set of problems. In the Elder Scrolls Arena, racial differences inadvertently restrict character class selection. Playing a lizard is best complemented by being a thief, and cat girls are best suited to be a scout. If you do it any other way, you're essentially playing a suboptimal build, which is why it's an inadvertent class restriction. In second edition Dungeons and Dragons, if you're a dwarf, you play a fighter. If you're a half-elf, you play a bard. If you're an elf, you play a wizard, fighter, and thief. And if you're a human, you play a character with an individual personality. Thus leads to my second major issue. In the vast majority of fantasy worlds, only humans are able to split themselves into separate societies. For this, I attribute complacency. Elves speak Elvish, have elven names, and are raised in elven culture. Dwarves speak Dwarfen, have dwarfen names, and are raised in dwarfen culture. And humans, well, what is human language? Humans speak English, German, Arabic, Pashtun, and so on and so forth. What are some human names? Diego, Gretel, Pierre, Adongo, Sun, Horu, to name a few. I'm not loquacious enough to describe various human cultures, but hopefully you get the point by now. Myself, I previously tried to create a game and some attached literature that addresses these issues with fantastical species that have non-human physiologies, and therefore abilities, and cultures that are differing responses to such. 21 countries later, the story quickly proved to be too ambitious of a task for a primum opus. As far as the writing goes, I've gotten a tour through one country, and as far as the game, I've gotten a framework down, but still need to make specific judgments on the usefulness of various arms and armors. They're very consciously on the back burner so that I can first complete a project. As for this hack and slash game on which I'm working now, oh yes. I've already started working out how the species of playable characters will be operating fundamentally differently from each other.